We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. We're absolutely thrilled to have Amy Goldman here. And first of all, I want to say Chodesh Tov to everybody. Just a brief introduction about Amy. Amy's originally from the UK, and she started her career there as a freelance artist, designing programs for art galleries, museums, and theatres. Since moving to Australia, her work has taken her from designing and delivering a wealth of programs within the Jewish community to working with remote Indigenous communities. She is a trained high school art teacher, but her passion for innovative and transformative education has led to her current role as a Montessori teacher. Amy's work spans many areas, from working as artist on set for theatre productions and establishing creative and nourishing spaces for monthly women's gatherings. One of her key passions is for nurturing leadership in young people, and she has been part of leading many national and international programs. The things that she values most in life are love, connection, spirituality, and meaningful work. Amy is a community-focused individual, and this is reflected in her involvement and close connection with her school community and various groups, organizations, and congregations within her local Jewish community. We're absolutely thrilled, Amy, that you've chosen to share your time with us this evening. And without any further ado, I will have you begin our Rosh Chodesh conversation, which has the wonderful title of Creating Magic in the Dark. Amy, all over to you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And it's lovely to see your face, Jane, as well. And I encourage anyone else who'd like to switch their camera on to join visually as well. So Chodesh Tov, everybody. I'd just like to dedicate tonight's Rosh Chodesh talk to a friend, someone I grew up with called David Stewart, who passed away unexpectedly very recently. So I just want to do it in his honor. And I also want to begin this evening by acknowledging country, and that we're lucky to be on this wonderful Aboriginal land, and especially today in the current climate, like to be living in New South Wales. It's just such a blessing right now, you know, to feel in such a safe space. I feel very lucky to be living here. So yes, I encourage you to get a pencil and paper. If you have one nearby, that will be very handy. And I think thank you, Sharon, for the introduction. And as we're going through, I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. But I'm just really, I'm really honored to be in this space with you. Rosh Chodesh is something that it's a ritual or a tradition that I've always felt very connected to as a Jewish person. And I've been involved in running or participating in Rosh Chodesh circles for about 15 years. And it's really lovely to be part of this one tonight and to be invited in. I think that I might just say a couple of words about Rosh Chodesh as well. One reason I love it so much is because I feel like it connects us to like this chain of matriarchs which have spanned, you know, so many hundreds of years, like going back in our own families, like to whatever level they might have been engaged in Rosh Chodesh themselves, and also like connects us hopefully to the future. And I just feel like it's like we're carrying this torch like from the past generations to the future, and you know, we're just keeping that flame burning. And light, the idea of light and flames, and will be a bit of a theme for tonight. One thing I also love to do at the beginning of Rosh Chodesh circles is to welcome in the presence of other matriarchs that we may have known in our own families or just in our own worlds, that may have found a special place in our hearts or that we were connected to. So I would just like to welcome like those people from the past or present into this space and just elevate the space in that way. So I'm just gonna sort of, as I welcome you all into this space, invite you to do that. If there is anyone, a mother, a grandmother, an auntie, a friend, a mentor, if there's anyone that whose name you'd like to recognize. So I always begin by saying I'm Amy, I'm daughter, like daughter is in the sort of daughter in the tribe, daughter of Maxine and Renee and Esther and Doris and Mary and Sarah. And I'm just going to welcome each of you. And if you want to say one name of someone who is in your eyes a matriarch, or someone who you carry in your heart and want to sort of remember them, then I encourage you or invite you to do that. So good evening, Sharon. Is there anyone that you would like to say the name of who's been influential?
That is really moving, and the person I would like to think of is the person I'm named after. Her name was Shana Malka, and I'm Sharon Malka, and she was my great grandmother who was killed in the Holocaust, and she's always with me, and that's who I'd like to welcome this evening.
Thank you, Sharon. Good evening, Jane. Jane, is there anyone that you comes to mind?
Yes, definitely. My grandmother, whose name was Mary.
Welcome in, Mary. Jacqueline, good evening. Is there anyone that you would like to say the name of? If you do want to, you just have to unmute, and I'm very welcome to do that, but there's no pressure to do that. Good evening, Maureen. Is there anyone that you would like to share the name of? Don't know if my camera's working that well. Good evening, Ray. Welcoming you in. Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I'd like to welcome in my mother and my father. And my mom's name was Devorah and my father's name was Abram.
Beautiful, thank you. Good evening, Caroline.
Good evening. I welcome Maxine and Renee and Doris.
Good evening, Bridget. Good evening, Helen. Good evening, Maud.
Hi.
Good evening, Helen.
It just took a while to find the button. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I think of my grandmother, Ada, because she was a bit of a naughty one. I like that.
Good evening, Agnes. How are you? Welcoming you as well.
Hi. My two grandmothers who I didn't meet because the Holocaust. So that's Emma and Ruby.
Beautiful. Well, I feel like we've really just, I don't know, opened up the space to even more powerful presence. So Rosh Chodesh, it's Rosh Chodesh Kislev this month, and Kislev brings with it the very well-known festival of Hanukkah. And Hanukkah is a really inclusive festival. Like, of all the festivals, Hanukkah like really comes to mind as one that it's so easy to be involved with, no matter what your age, no matter what your religious inclination, no matter where it is that you live. Like, you can do it in isolation. Like, it's very easy to enjoy and easy to feel that connection to your heritage, like through lighting, the candles and the Hanukkah. And the symbolism as well is really powerful, like the symbol of the Hanukkah, which relates to the menorah as well. Like, it's almost as big a symbol for us as like the Magen David, and it's just really accessible hag for all of us. And obviously, by the end of Hanukkah, after you've lit all these candles night after night, you've got this beautiful glowing symbol, which is just really a powerful image and inspiring, and it's just it's got some magic to it. Like it really does. It's sort of hypnotizing in a way. So I just want to talk about like the power of lights and light tonight, and link it not only to like this month of Kislev and the festival of Hanukkah, but also to Rosh Chodesh, since that's what's connecting us tonight, connecting it to our lives and connecting it to the world as it is at the moment as well. So candles themselves invoke a lot of meaning. They can be very symbolic. They can be a metaphor for hope, for renewal, for remembrance, for sanctity, birthdays, for grief, for romance. Like there's just this all-encompassing symbolism and of candles. And with Hanukkah actually originated in the northern hemisphere, and so it was held at a time of year which was the darkest time of year, around the winter solstice. So the darkest day of the year, when sort of the tilt of the earth means you're furthest away from the sun. So the winter solstice is around December 21st, and that's often Hanukkah falls around that time. So it's like this sort of concept of like really lighting up like that darkest part of the year, and you know, putting our Hanukkah in the windows, whatever, you know, wherever it might be able to be seen. So it really invites us to consider the idea of light in dark times. And if we think about how that might relate to today, to us right now, I think it's no more relevant than for today and right now. We're living in a time that is really going to leave its footprint on us as a civilization, as a global community, and it feels like it's going to be, you know, really noted in the history books. It's also, yeah, I mean, people talk about 2020 like they can't wait for it to be over. It's been such a, you know, dark and miserable year. And I think for some of us as well, there have probably been some silver linings, especially with where we live, and we've been quite fortunate. But as a civilization, as a global, you know, the pandemic, like it's been a tough time. And so, so just thinking about that idea of bringing light in. Now moving to Rosh Chodesh, as many of you may know, Rosh Chodesh traditionally, like back in ancient times, people used to climb up mountains and light a beacon so that the people on the next mountain would know to signal that Rosh Chodesh, that it was Rosh Chodesh, that Rosh Chodesh had begun, and they could sanctify it. And it was this idea of lighting fires from sort of mountain to mountain, or hilltop to hilltop. So Rosh Chodesh, you know, we celebrate Rosh Chodesh not when it's the full moon and it's all glowing and beautiful, but when it's dark, when it's at its darkest. And it's almost like this promise of the light to come. And it's like a symbol of hope. And all this illumination grows out of darkness, which we are in tonight. This is the darkest time. So it's looking to the future. It's about renewal, and the moon renews itself every 30 days and builds up from this point. It builds up to the full moon, which is also almost like with the Hanukkah, when we light our first candle on Hanukkah, it builds up until we have this full expanse of light coming from our Hanukkah. So relating it to today and the world that we're in, if we relate it back to where we were this time last year, so at Hanukkah, we had the bushfires come in, which, although seem less significant now after all the things that have gone on in the world, they were at the time like really devastating, and we suffered a lot of loss through loss of life, loss of homes, loss of businesses, loss of wildlife, loss of land. It was very traumatic for Australia, not just for the people involved, as we just watched, and you know, it just felt so out of control, and we just needed to feel that control and have some hope for what was happening. Yeah, and just like that especially for our land and our wildlife. And then obviously COVID, which has been this continuous conversation since it hit. And it really has been a bit of a dark time for us as a global community. So much unknown, like not just people dying and health and anxiety, but also families, you know, kept apart, and just feels like we're just scrambling around in the dark, like for a solution and for hope. And my parents are in the UK, and you know, they're being told, a lot of people in the UK are being told this vaccination's coming out and it might be fine by next year. And it's almost like this desperate need for some hope, for something to cling on to, and some light at the end of the tunnel. And it's an interesting time because it's actually something that's connected the entire world, like more than anything, more than even World War I or World War II, like it's connected all of us. So it's an interesting time to live through. So I want to go on to talk about how we can make a bit of a change and bring a bit of light and lightness into our world by focusing this Hanukkah. And I'm just going to tell a really short story before I go into the how. So at one point I was living in a really remote area of Western Australia. I was living in an Indigenous community, and I was there as a teacher. And everyone who lived there was Aboriginal. And the only people who weren't were the people who were coming in from outside, like Western, like doctors, nurses, health people, teachers, and policemen. That was the majority. And there was this real divide between the local community and this sort of temporary community coming in. And we did all live together, and there was a lot of crossover, and there was socializing, but we were in separate worlds. And through me being with the children at school, I was with a lot of high school students. It came to light that I was Jewish, which I didn't think would be such a interesting thing, but it turned out it really was interesting to them. And the parents and the community, people in the community would ask me all different questions, and they never actually referred to me as Jewish. They always said Miss Amy, who she's one of the chosen people, which I always found a bit awkward. But anyway, that was the way they viewed it. And anyway, so I talked about the ritual of Rosh Chodesh and how that was something that I really connected in terms of Judaism, one of the things I love to do. And I explained, like, you know, women get together, and it's very much a women's kind of time, and we have this, I create sacred space and connect. And they said, well, that's what we do. Like we just call it secret women's business, and it's the same thing. And we come together as women, and there's this power in it, and we connect. And they invited me to this bush meeting with secret women's, which we were already in a remote area, but they went really deep into the bush, and you know, spent a week there. And I wasn't there for the entire week, I was there for most of it, but coming to like these ancient meetings, and it was so powerful. And I said to them, like, this is such an honor, it's so powerful, it's so beautiful. And they said, well, you're part of your own tribe, and you might not be here in the in the outback, but you also have this sacred space. And it's just so beautiful how, you know, it's such a recognized thing through ancient tribes, civilizations. I mean, the Aboriginal people are probably the oldest existing civilization and tribe on earth. And just that elevation of like sacred space and the power of women coming together and the light that we can create as a not just individually, but collectively. So what I'm going to invite you to do is, for this Hanukkah, given the year that we've had, like to really elevate Hanukkah beyond a present giving, donut eating, latke making festival, and to really be a light. Like, we all know these people who light up the room, who brighten up our day, who are shine, they really sort of light up the room. And all of us are actually that person to someone or to some people. We probably don't recognize it or see it in ourselves, but just like the people who light up your day or brighten up your day, you know, they probably don't know that they're that person to you as well. So what I would like to do with your paper is very simple. You do not have to be artistic. Is to draw like a big U shape, and just like this, like a little smile, and you're going to draw 4 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, like so. And we're going to do a line down the middle. And you can guess what I'm drawing. Hanukkah. So what I'm going to invite you to do is for each night of Hanukkah to do one small thing, a small thing that is going to invite light into your home, into your community, and into your world. So the first one, on the first night, it's just going to say, I love. So it just says, I love on the first night. Mine's back to front because the camera. So on the first night, I just want you to think of someone who you is in your absolute inner circle, someone that you love so much. It might be your spouse or your child or your mother or your grandchild, someone who it's so easy to love. And you're going to just on the first night of Hanukkah or the first day, just spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is, really invested in something with them, whether it's just listening to what they're saying, whether it's playing a game with them, whether it's taking a walk, just something so small, having a cup of tea, and just really being present with them and letting them know that them being in your life and in your inner circle is so, like, means so much. You feel so much gratitude. You feel so lucky to have them in your life. So that's night one, someone that you love. Very easy to do. The second night, I'm going to invite you to write the word family. Now, family also would seem like a very easy one to do, but this one I'm referring to family who's on the fringe. So if you think of the periphery, not your inner circle, like the ones on the outside. So it might be someone who you've just lost a little bit of connection with, or just neglected the relationship, not for any reason, not because there's broigers, not because there's like falling out, just because we're also busy and it's hard to maintain relationships with every great auntie or cousin that you grew up with, but there's always that someone who we really care about and we have so much history with them and you know, commonality, but we just lose touch sometimes. So it's just for the second night, just to reach out to somebody, you know, write a letter, pick up the phone, just do a really small something just to try and like just reconnect a little bit with that person. The third night is going to say friend in need. So especially if you have so friend in need. So everyone's going through something, and I'm sure the friends who you know very well, you know, everyone's got like a little something that they might be struggling with. So do you have a friend in need who might be grieving somebody, who might be, you know, not in the best health, who might just need a helping hand, who might just need a friend to go for a walk with, just a friend who you know needs a little bit of extra something, and just to let them know that you are in their support network. They might have lots of other people that are in their family or in their neighborhood, but just to reach out and say, let's go for a walk, or let's, you know, can I bring you over dinner or something. So just a friend in need. The fourth one is a hard one. So this one is going to say hard to love. So we all have people in our life who we may not have invited into our life. they just came as a package deal with the family or through work, or they're a next door neighbor, just someone who is not an easy person to love. And they're in our life regardless. And I know as a teacher that the children who are the hardest ones to love in my class are the ones that need the love the most, always. And I think you're really going to have to dig deep for this one, but trying to reach out to somebody who is really a tough one for you, and just offer something small, whatever that might look like for you, just something really small. The fifth one, after what you've just done, is going to say myself. So this one is for you. So not me, myself is for you. So after night 4, where you might have reached out to someone who was hard to love, the 5th night is myself. Just do something for yourself that day. It might be a cup of tea in the sunshine, a walk around the block, run yourself a bath, light a candle, whatever it might be. Just do something for yourself, not sitting down and watching the latest episode of The Crown or something like that, but like really doing something that is loving for yourself. And the next one's going to say community. Community might look different for different people. It might be your local Great Synagogue community, another branch of your Jewish community. It might be your neighborhood, might be where your workplace is, but just doing something for community. It might be calling up the Great Synagogue and saying, you know what, I have 2 or 3 hours free. How can you use me? Or just baking a cake for a fundraiser or whatever, something small that's for a local community. You know, maybe your neighbor just had a baby and, you know, just could do with something. Second to last night, also a bit of a tricky one, is going to say stranger. So this is doing something for someone that you do not know. We all come across and share our lives with strangers all the time. And it's just nice to do something for a stranger. It might be that you're standing in a line at the cafe and you decide just to shout this person next to you their coffee for the day. Or you, one thing I always challenge myself to do, which I find so hard, but is to compliment someone walking down the street, especially if I see someone who just looks so lovely, like they have a beautiful yellow skirt on or their hair looks nice, just to say, and it's so hard for me to do, but just to say like, you look great today, or, you know, that's a lovely yellow skirt. Anyway, just something small to someone who you don't know and you're probably never going to see again. And the last one is going to say world. So the big wide world. So that's your last night. And that one is it's just thinking beyond the bubble, beyond your community, beyond your home, beyond your family. Like it might be something that you donate to a cause, that you sign a petition, that you, it could be something just like you're going to say a prayer each time you light your Shabbat candles for, you know, something, just putting something positive out there into the world. So I really stress that these things all can be so small and so simple. And no matter what they are, they'll probably give you a lot more than you might be giving out, just to elevate Hanukkah in a really simple way this year and just have the focus being outward and spreading that light. And I mean, one of the focuses of Hanukkah is to illuminate our homes and to illuminate the world beyond our homes. So hopefully that gives us an opportunity to do both of those, illuminating our homes, the families within it, the people around us, and illuminating the world outside of our homes as well. So good luck if you choose to take up the challenge. And if you just do 1 or 2 nights, then better than doing none. It's just something to enjoy and hopefully just something really simple that you can try this year.
One thing that struck me where you talked about the second night and reconnecting with someone. This is just so uncanny. I have a cousin in San Francisco who he's 82 years old. We found each other after many years of not knowing where in the world we were. And I guess I haven't been a good correspondent lately. And he's an artist. And he sent me this picture and asked me to reconnect. And look at all that light. I just got this today. And it's just amazing. Wow.
There's no such thing as a coincidence.
Right. Oh, that and this is a man who is an atheist. He is not religious at all, but just how what he sent to me today just tied in with what you spoke about. Wow. And that really did make me think. Who else would like to comment? Maureen.
Hi. Amy, I wanted to know, I'm actually in Perth in Western Australia right now. That's where I live. And I wondered where you were in Western Australia, which Aboriginal community you were in.
I worked in Fitzroy Crossing, which is about 5 hours inland from Broome, 5.5.
Wow, that is remote.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area in the Kimberleys. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I've also lived in Northern Territory as well for a while. In Chapuru. It was also a nice spot to.
What did the Aboriginal women do during those days that you were
out? It was amazing. Some of it was very structured, and some of the elders were really rallying around the women to really strengthen themselves and saying, like, we're the ones. So the women are the ones that are going to carry these communities out of, the trouble and the strife that they're finding themselves in. And they were really trying to, build up and lift up the women in all different ways. There were also, like, I was running like art and craft things for all the children. So there's all sorts of things going on, but it was just in tents, like in a few tents. But at nighttime, it was so beautiful. The grandmothers would paint the daughters, and the daughters would paint the children, and it was just each generation putting all this paint, and they were completely naked except for like a little cloth around their groin, and then they would spend the night just dancing with just a fire under the stars, and singing and chanting and doing their dances, which had a lot of symbolism and meaning. And it was so powerful, like just that chanting and the dress, and it just felt so ancient and so raw, and so it was such an honor to be in that space with them. But as well as that tradition and that ancient ritual, there was this feeling of like, the women have to work hard to bring everyone out of the troubled times that they'd found themselves in, and it was hard. I think a lot fell on the shoulders of the elders, and there were only a handful that were really, really strong in motivating all the women. But it's been a long time since I was there, and hopefully they're going from strength to strength. I'm still very much in touch with the principal of the school, who's Aboriginal, and she still lives there.
Sounds wonderful. Agnes, you're unmuted. Did you want to?
No, I thought it was a lovely idea with the different evenings of the lighting the candles, and I think some of that really spoke to me about some of the people you chose, or the things, the people who lost contact, or the person who's hard to love. It all spoke to me. I think the one I have difficulty is the bigger, wider world. you know, sometimes there's so much out there that is overwhelming, and you just wish there was something that you could do to make a difference. And I find that hard, you know, in little ways. Yes, I find it very easy to just make it, you know, conversation with a stranger. That's something I don't, in fact, sometimes it's easier to strike up a conversation with a stranger than somebody you actually have known, but you don't know, you know, or somebody you've become distanced from. Yeah. So
I think as well, that concept of the bigger world, I think if we're all actually a bit more committed to making our immediate world, even just our homes and our family, lighter and a more positive space to be in, then it's just going to, you know, it's going to travel around the world if more people are doing that. And maybe this year has seen more people go inward and go back to home and go back to community, and go back to their neighborhood. So I think it just, you know, you always hear that phrase, it just begins with you, it just begins with your home.
Just one little thing at a time, little thing, lots of little things. Yeah. Anyway.
I think to have a ripple effect.
Yeah, you know, we used to travel a lot until last year, and of course the entire year we haven't traveled, and now we've started moving a little further afield, but in New South Wales, and going to all these lovely places close by, you know, connecting more with our home, and you know, spending your money locally so that the local people who've really been doing it very tough can do it a bit better. It's been, as Agnes, I know Agnes and her husband were traveling locally recently. We did, John and Jane and her husband as well. So yeah, it's been great. It's been very good, actually.
Actually, it's a connection, you know, when we say traveling locally, we actually were right out to Broken Hill and then up to Backaburg. So Amy, we did a fair bit of Indigenous activities, and, well, you know, went to Aboriginal cultural sites like Mungo National Park, so Mungo Man, and the Brewarrina fish collecting areas.
Wow,
so, you know, it's in the fish traps. So it's really interesting that, you know, that you have spent so much time with Indigenous, and we had quite a focus on in the national parks on looking at the, you know, thousands of years old of Aboriginal artwork, and starting to understand a little bit what it all meant. So yeah.
It's nice everyone's traveling in their own backyard. I mean, what a backyard we've got. And so often, like, you know, you travel the world seeing these amazing cultures and places, but actually we've probably got one of the most fascinating ones right here. And so it's good to have the opportunity just to stay local. There's kind of stuck in paradise, really.
In you know, it's a parallel of you looking at starting at home, you know, your family, people within the family or more distant, and then reaching out, and really, in a way, we're paralleling that. People are, you know, when you walk your local area and you just see the beauty that's there, that we're so fortunate with, especially living in Sydney, and just the gardens and things, your eyes open up and you see the world a little bit differently as well, and you appreciate the smaller things.
Yeah, we found that in, sorry, I'm interrupting somebody. When we were in lockdown earlier in the year, we could go for walks, obviously, and we explored every possible walk in our area. And although we always have walked a lot in our area, we just turned down roads that we hadn't turned down before, and found that there were all sorts of corners of the neighborhood that had previously been unexplored that were delightful. So there is something very wonderful. And then recently we had an even more different experience, because we spent we were able to go to Sydney, and we spent 2 weeks in quarantine in our home back in Perth, which meant that we couldn't actually leave our property. We could go outside into the garden, but we couldn't leave the premises other than on the 11th day when we went for our COVID test. And it was wonderful. There was something so liberating about not being able to go anywhere. We would, first of all, it was worth it because we'd seen our children and grandchildren in Sydney, but we didn't find it difficult at all. And yeah, we walked a lot around our garden for our fresh air and exercise, but we did not find it stultifying or claustrophobic. And the other huge thing that has happened this year is all these things on Zoom. That we've always had a very strong connection with Sydney because we've been coming for many years to our family, but now we're attending many talks and events at a national level, mostly Jewish ones, and it's been remarkable. It just cements that connection.
Yeah.
Well, it's been lovely to be in this space with all of you tonight.
I just wanted to share one story, Amy, sorry, about saying something to a total stranger. Several years ago, we were in Blackheath in the Blue Mountains, and we were sitting in a restaurant, and the front of the restaurant was all glass windows, and a lady walked by. I don't know if any of you ladies know the poem, "When I am old, I shall wear purple."
Yeah.
Which I love that poem. I absolutely love it. Well, this woman, she was an elderly lady, and she was dressed all in purple with a red hat, just like in the poem. And I got up and I went out of the restaurant, and I went to speak to her and tell her how gorgeous she looked. And she'd never heard of this poem. She was just doing this. And she sat down on the bench, and I asked her if I could take a photo of her, and I did. And it was the most uplifting experience. And she said to me something like, "You've made an old lady very happy today." So again, that's exactly what you said.
Especially for some people don't have that connection at home, and sometimes chatting to a stranger is the only point of contact they might have in the day. And if you can make that, a positive, lovely experience just by saying something as simple as that, it's that is lighting up someone's world for that day. And she'll probably often think of that when she puts on her purple outfit, like, "Oh, I remember when I was stopped in the street wearing this outfit." So
Well, you've made all of us think of Hanukkah so differently. Like you said in the beginning, yes, there are the candles, and there are the latkes, and there are the donuts, and there are the gifts, but this is something very, very different. And I will certainly, Hanukkah will definitely have a whole new meaning for me this year, as I'm sure for everybody else here.
It was lovely to be here. I'm gonna have to go, but thank you so much. Thank you for switching on your cameras as well. It's lovely to see you, and
Thank you.
hope maybe I'll join you in this space again soon.